All right, guys. We're going to get into chapter 13 here. Again, I can't always tell. I keep forgetting to ask you guys if you can see the slides well enough. Because it sure seems like when I'm looking at them on the iPad, there's a glare on them. So hopefully you're going through them on your computer if you're having trouble making them out. And remind me or answer that to me when we're in class, because I just don't, there's not a ton I can do about it, but I just would like to know. Okay, so chapter 13 is on marketing, and I don't necessarily like how it's laid out. So we're going to jump around in the slides a little bit, just because I don't know, I like to think about gaining a customer first, and the research, the market segmentation needs to go into it, and then move on to customer satisfaction, customer retention, customer relationships, things like that. So we're going to kind of move around here a little bit, but let's get started. I probably will stop the message as well somewhere along the line. Again, just try to avoid the whole technology freezing up and that whole problem we've had. So anyway, let's get going here. It starts with our definition of marketing, of course, and they give us a kind of a mouthful of a definition here. And I think we understand marketing, but they're calling it the activity for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offers with value for customers. So the idea of presenting something to a customer that is of value to them, and exchanging, obviously in most cases, currency, for that product. So that's at the basic level. What marketing is all about is about helping people understand what's available, what are the benefits of the product you have, and what kind of cost is related to it. So obviously marketing has changed a bunch, and again that slide just looks like white on the screen to me, so I'm sorry I'm distracted by that. I don't know if you can even see any of that content. It looks fine on my TV. It's like somehow the camera just is picking up something else. So anyway, I hope you guys can make those out, and if not, download them and look at them on your computer. But so anyway, marketing has changed a lot. Obviously, technology is changing the way we can reach people, the efficiency at which we can explain what our products and services are, even actually conducting the transaction. So internet is changing that a lot. Obviously, then on the social media side, think about the power of the word of mouth. That's always been in existence, but now marketing can be aware of that word of mouth. They can see what's being said. They can even try to participate in that. Again, back in the day, it was just you talk to your neighbors and whatever they thought, and you asked a few people, and then you went with it. And now it's I literally can reach anywhere in the world and get people's opinions on this product or service. So they're kind of breaking down the progression of marketing. It used to be just in the production area, you just make it and someone will buy it, because you made it well and it was quality. People wanted it, they'd buy it, and then after that, it became a little bit more about selling. And so once we started making a bunch of products, we started getting into this idea of selling. And then after selling era, it became a situation where we began to try to differentiate ourselves or position our products so that consumers could begin to tell why we were maybe better or different than our competition. So we started to try to refine our message. There's kind of three areas of marketing. Again, so a lot of times you'll see customer service is inside the marketing department, and yet so is outside sales. Marketing is kind of all of the functions that go into delivering your product to a consumer base, and obviously a profit orientation is that for any reason. The main reason we're in business to make money. So the slides now want us to jump to kind of retaining customers in this customer relationship management, but I want to skip past that right now and go to a slide that's now talking about market research. So if we understand marketing to be this process of identifying customers and providing a product or service that they're interested in, before we start talking about retaining those customers, I feel like we need to start by saying, well, how do we figure out where those customers are at, and and what are their interests. And we do that with market research. Now, the challenge with market research is, it can be really expensive. It can be very time consuming. And so especially if you're a startup, small business entrepreneur, I don't have the resources to go out and hire a marketing research firm and do a bunch of these studies. But nonetheless, you have to, it's critical that you get connected to, what do our customers want and how do we begin to segment them. And we're going to talk about market segmentation here in just a little bit. But research need to uncover what trends are going on, what are the current attitudes towards my product or service. And so we've got to conduct some research. So we define the opportunity that we're talking about and collect some data, and we'll talk about different data types in just a second. One of the things that happens in the research process is we don't give enough consideration to what are the alternatives. A lot of times we get so excited about our new business idea and we're so certain that it's going to be successful, and we ask our closest people what they think, and sometimes out of fear of hurting our feelings, they'll say, oh yeah, that's going to be a great idea. Yeah, go for that. And yet you didn't really get enough data to know for sure whether there's alternatives out there that people are already satisfied with. And so a lot of times you have to think about what my product or service is providing to the customer, and so you think about, example like the little Post-it 3M strips you put on the wall to hang a picture or whatever, and like, okay, well, what product, what quality or what need is being satisfied by those Post-it strips? Well, it's the same need as a hammer and a nail and a hook that's hanging from the ceiling, and so what are the alternatives for that? And be sure that we are aware of those alternatives, because ultimately they become our competition. So we start to figure out how we're going to gather information, and so they've got different types of information. Secondary data is data that already exists. So one of the big advantages of secondary data is I didn't have to pay as much for it. Okay, it's out there already. I just have to access it and find it. So what are some sources of secondary data? A lot of times like a census, the government census. There could be trade associations who have done data research on the size of particular segments of their market. So there's data that's out there, and you can gather that. Sometimes you still have to pay a little something for it, but it's not something that you had to do the entire research start to finish on. The downside to secondary data, the upside being it's inexpensive and we can get a hold of it sometimes quicker. The downside is it doesn't directly apply to my product. So I'm having to make inferences or relationships or connections from the secondary data to my particular product. And sometimes that can be difficult, and sometimes you'll make them wrong, which will affect your forecasting. Primary data is now research that you've done specifically at your own cost and for your own product or service. So what are some ways that we can gather that data? Well, the internet obviously is making that much easier as well. We've all taken online surveys that we're probably a lot more likely to click on in our email box than we are open up a piece of mail, write stuff down, put a stamp on it, send it in, which is how we used to have to do a lot of research. Those things are still available, and obviously telephone is still around as well, where we can, you'll get the, hey, would you stick on the call here when we're done, so you can give us some feedback on how your customer service experience was on the phone. So we're gathering that primary data in an effort to help us, make decisions on our product or service. Another option for data collection is the focus group. And focus groups, again, more expensive. I have to organize them. I have to identify, a sampling of who I think my marketplace is. I got to get them together. I may have to pay them to be there. I got to facilitate questions. I record the answers, record the entire focus group session, and then try to break it down, understand it, make inferences from behavior or language that's used. So, a lot more involved process, usually facilitated by a professional. So now we get all this data, secondary data, primary data, focus group data, opinions from people inside the organization, and we got to take that data and try to convert it into information, because some of it's important, some of it's relevant data we want to look at and understand, but some of it is not, and we got to be able to make sure we're discarding or filtering out that data that is not critical, and we're focusing now on the information that we can actually make decisions from. And so then, with that information in hand, you start to map out your strategies, and we're going to get into the 4 P's of marketing in just a second. And that is a lot of the guts and the roots of marketing. But you're going to be able to have decisions along those 4 P's: price, product, place, and promotion. Here in just a second. Some of the key benefits to market research: again, understanding your customers' needs and what's going to take to satisfy those needs is huge. It's at the root of all business transactions. Is this customer needs something, and I have something that's going to satisfy that need. Your market research is going to help tip you off. Am I heading the right direction? Does it look like they even have that need, or do I just think they have it? What are the current markets and opportunities? We're going to talk about market segmentation next. And yeah, there's a customer group that wants this product or service. There's a need for it, and I know I can satisfy it. But if that's 5 people, how much money am I going to make? Can we find an opportunity that's 50,000 people or 5 million people? So understanding the size of our market is going to be important as well. How we communicate with those customers, what, not just where and how do we get in front of them, but what message do we have? What do they respond to? Again, just more ways to get to know your customer better. I like the one that's third bullet point down. Listen to competitors' customers. So I think a lot of times we go into business thinking that we're the best and we're going to be awesome, and you discount, you tear down your competition because you want to beat them and it's competitive, and I get that. But a lot of times there are great things you can learn from your competition. They're in business for a reason also. What are they doing well? What is their customer or their product or service providing the customer? Can we copy any of that? Should we copy any of that? So we can learn a lot by listening to our competitors' customers as well. Your sales force often knows. They know why they're missing sales. Hey, I had this and I told them this was how we did things and I lost the sale. Or I'm hearing from my customers that if we did A or B, they would even like that more. So understanding our sales force and what feedback they're getting in the marketplace is huge. Okay, so it wants us to. I want to. The slides jump to this scanning of the environment and whatnot. I want to switch first then and go to market segmentation. So I'm over on several slides, 39, I guess, slide. I want to talk about market segmentation and target marketing. So let's back up. We know what marketing is. We've done our research. We know that there's a need out there, but we have to begin to segment the market. What does that mean? There are a lot of different ways that you can segment the market. We're going to get into that next. The best way to think about market segmentation is taking a large group of consumers and finding ways to put them into groups or buckets or segments. Okay? Why do we do that? The main reason you segment a market is because that one segment wants something or values something of your product differently than the other segment. Let me say that again. So why we're segmenting markets into multiple buckets is because one group, one segment, one bucket wants something, values something in your product or service more or differently than another market. Okay. The other reason you might segment the market is that they will respond to a different marketing message. So they might like the same things of the product or the service, but they are going to respond differently than the other group when provided a marketing message. Saying the same thing again, I might need to tailor my advertising and marketing message to segment A versus segment B. Two different marketing messages. That's why we segment markets. if we didn't have that situation, if market segment A and B and C all wanted and valued the same thing from our product, they'd be the same market. Okay, so there would be no need to segment them out because they want the same things, they value the same things in our product, and they'll respond to the same message. They are then the same market. Okay, so that's why we end up segmenting markets. And then once we've segmented markets, we have to decide what our target market is. And that can be all of those. We might say, hey, we're going to go ahead and market to segment A, B, and C. Or we might say, you know what? Let's initially focus on just segment A. Okay? And so that target marketing becomes the next step once we have segmented our marketplace. Sorry, I thought I was on that slide and I wasn't. So I need to, all that was on slide 40. I'm sorry. So markets. So what are some ways that we can segment a market? Okay, we want to begin to target markets. We want to begin to segment markets. What are some ways that we can say, hey, look, there's this giant group out there, but I want this slice or that slice. So what are some ways we can do that? Well, demographics is one of the most popular ways. A lot of the reason because a lot of the demographic data is available as secondary data. So I can get my hands on demographic data pretty simply and pretty inexpensively. So what are some things that are in there? Age, income, your gender, things that are about individuals that are not subjective. They're facts, if you will. Very easy to get that data, and you can start to segment. Well, I want to sell to only the elderly. I want to sell to only kids. I want to sell to women. Those sort of segmentations can happen. The other one that's fairly common, fairly easy, is geographic segmentation. Okay, I don't want to sell to the Midwest. I want to sell the East Coast and the West Coast because they're cutting edge and they're trendy and etc. So I'm going to segment my markets. Or the East Coast doesn't want to hear the same message that the people in Indiana want to hear. So I need to have those be separate market segments. And so we're going to separate them geographically. The next one on this slide is psychographic segmentation. This is where we're segmenting things based on values, group norms and attitudes, interests. You get lifestyle marketing going on here. So when you see a rock star endorse, some alcoholic beverage or something like that, they're hoping the audience is making the connection that I want to have a rock star's lifestyle. I'm going to drink this product or use this product. So psychographic a lot of times is emotional. It's trying to get you to think of yourself differently because you're using this product or service. Benefit segmentation. A lot of times I want to separate my customers, again, based on the benefit my product provides to them. Okay, so take Red Bull, for instance. The main benefit Red Bull is promoting to students would be the extra energy, the ability to stay up later and study, and that sort of thing. And that's the benefit Red Bull would be promoting to their students. But then Red Bull's also promoting differently to athletes. And they're saying, hey, look, this is cutting edge, it's edgy, it's experimental, those sort of things, and then thirdly, they're promoting Red Bull to the spirit industry, the liquor industry, as a complement to, beverages, Red Bull and vodka, whatever. So in there, they're saying, hey, look, this is new, it's fresh, it's something different, it's a different mixer. Okay, so they might be promoting all three of those with different messages and calling those different segments of their customer. And then volume. We might decide to change our marketing strategy based on volume. So here's, I doubt you can see this stuff, but these slides on 43 and 44 are just walking through some of these breakdowns. Under volume, think of like loyalty programs. okay, and how we want to reward those customers who have been with us a long time or use a lot of our product. So we want to be aware of that. Okay, so what I want to do, I think, is stop here to reset the technology. Then we're going to come back and we're actually going to get into, okay, so we've got these markets segmented, and now we need to actually begin to market to them. So we're going to go into the 4 Ps, talk about price, product, place, and promotion. So we'll come back here in just a second in part 2 and get the rest of this chapter done. Thanks.